Imagine taking the ultimate financial ball and chain, right? The standard 30-year mortgage, and just, I don't know, snapping it in half.
Or even more than half, honestly.
Right. Actually, yeah, forget half. Imagine shrinking a timeline that usually spans, your entire adult working life down to maybe 8 years.
It sounds wild.
Or in some high leverage cases we're going to look at, 4.5 years. So welcome to today's deep dive. You, the listeners, sent us this really fascinating stack of documents from Epic Lending, and it outlines this financial product called the All-in-One Loan, or AIO.
Yeah, the AIO.
Right, and our mission today is to look strictly at the math here. We want to see if we can fundamentally change how we think about homeownership. Like, can we really turn a static, decades-long debt sentence into this dynamic wealth-building engine?
Just by changing where your paycheck goes, yeah.
Exactly, just changing where the direct deposit lands.
It's an incredibly bold claim. And, whenever you see marketing that promises to shave 20 years off a mortgage, skepticism is your best friend.
Oh, absolutely.
So my goal today is to completely strip away that marketing gloss. We are going to dig into the actual plumbing of these documents.
Let's get into the plumbing.
Right, because we need to understand not just what it claims, but the exact mathematical mechanisms it uses. Because, if the numbers actually hold up under scrutiny, this concept completely flips the traditional banking model entirely on its head.
I love that approach. So let's start with the plumbing then, because to understand how you magically shave decades off a loan, we first have to agree on how a traditional mortgage actually operates.
Yeah, the baseline.
Right. And reading through these sources, it becomes glaringly obvious that the traditional 30-year fixed loan isn't just slow, it actively traps your liquidity.
It absolutely does. The documents actually refer to the traditional 30-year fixed as the old school method. And they point out a few structural realities that banks, frankly, heavily rely on.
Yeah.
First, you have the amortization schedule. It heavily front loads the interest charges.
Right. So when you make your payment in year 1 or 2,
the vast majority of your hard-earned cash isn't buying you equity at all. It's just paying the bank's interest fee. Very, very little is actually shrinking the principal balance of the house.
It takes like a decade before you even look at your statement and feel like you've made a dent in what you actually owe.
Precisely. And then the second structural flaw is the static nature of the payments.
Meaning they don't change.
Right. No matter how much cash you have sitting in your checking account on, say, any given Tuesday, your mortgage payment remains this rigid, isolated event that happens once a month. Your idle cash does nothing to help your debt.
Nothing at all.
And third, any equity you do manage to build up, it's entirely trapped. Your funds are, locked inside the drywall of the home.
You can't spend drywall.
Exactly. They are completely inaccessible unless you go hat in hand to the bank for another loan, pay exorbitant fees to refinance, or, just sell the property outright.
I was actually trying to visualize this structural flaw while reading the mechanics, and it feels like a one-way pipe.
One-way pipe, yeah.
Like a traditional mortgage is a locked vault or one-way pipe where you push your money down every single month, but you can never reach down and pull that money back up if you need it to buy groceries. And at the top of that pipe, the bank is taking a massive toll before your cash even touches the principal.
That's a great way to put it.
But this AIO, this all-in-one loan, is engineered completely differently. Instead of a one-way pipe, it operates more like a two-way reservoir.
That was a much more accurate metaphor for what is happening here. The core mechanic of the AIO is unification.
Unification.
It essentially takes 3 separate financial products that you probably already juggle in your daily life: a checking account, a home equity line of credit, a HELOC,
Yep.
and a mortgage. And it just smashes them together into one single unified financial reservoir.
Conceptually, that sounds highly efficient, but let's walk through the actual mechanics of what that means for you on, say, a random Friday when you get paid. You don't have a separate checking account at a retail bank anymore, right?
Correct. You do not. And this is where we hit the most critical detail. Is the daily interest calculation.
Okay, break that down for me.
In the AIO model, your paycheck is deposited directly into the loan itself. The moment that direct deposit hits the account, it instantly reduces your principal balance by that exact dollar amount.
Wait, instantly. So if I owe $300,000 on my house and my $5,000 paycheck hits, my mortgage is instantly $295,000.
Instantly. Now, here's the secret sauce. Interest on the AIO is not calculated monthly based on a preset schedule, like your old loan.
Right.
It is calculated daily based on whatever the exact principal balance is at midnight.
Oh, wow.
So by slamming your entire paycheck against the principal the second you earn it, you are instantly forcing the principal down, which means the daily interest fee the bank is allowed to charge you drops instantly too.
But wait, because it's also a functional checking account, my money isn't gone, right? I mean, I still have to pay my electric bill.
Yes, exactly.
So I just open the spigot at the bottom of the reservoir to pay for my life, which slowly raises the loan balance back up as I spend.
Right. You have a debit card, you write checks just like normal.
But in the meantime, for those days or weeks before the bills are actually due, every single dollar I own is actively fighting my mortgage interest.
Exactly. Your idle cash is no longer idle. In the traditional system, your checking account is basically a waiting room where your money earns zero yield while waiting to be spent.
Just sitting there doing nothing.
Right. In the AIO, the waiting room is the mortgage itself. Your money is put to work, suffocating your interest charges the absolute second it is earned.
Okay, conceptually, that makes total sense to me. But the actual impact of, slicing off a few dollars of daily interest on a massive six-figure debt is really hard to visualize until you look at a real borrower's ledger.
It is.
Like, how much of a difference does this actually make over time?
Well, the documents frame this exact question by introducing this concept of the two levers of equity power.
The two levers, right?
Lever one is passive appreciation. That's the old school method. You buy a house, you just occupy it, and you wait 20 or 30 years, basically crossing your fingers that the real estate market inflates the value of your neighborhood.
You're totally at the mercy of macroeconomic trends.
Entirely out of your control. But lever two is active daily paydown. This is what the AIO relies on. It's driven by your own cash flow.
The direct deposits.
Exactly. Every deposit reduces principal daily, killing interest and creating equity exponentially faster than a traditional schedule. The premise is, why rely solely on passive market luck when you can actively force equity creation every single day?
Let's prove that math then, because the sources provided some incredibly specific client profile scenarios, and honestly, the numbers made me do a double take.
They are eye-opening.
Let's break down scenario one. I was looking at this couple, and they are making a $400,000 home purchase and putting 10% down.
Okay, so a starting loan amount of $360,000.
Right. In a traditional 30-year fixed setup at a 6.25% rate, this couple would spend 3 decades paying it off. And over that time, they'd hand the bank $437,970 just in interest.
Which is more than the original cost of the house itself.
It's insane.
Their total outlay is nearly $800,000.
Right. Now, let's look at their actual cash flow in this scenario. This couple takes home $5,000 every 2 weeks, so roughly $10,800 a month on average.
Yep.
And they aren't living on instant ramen. They're spending 75% of that income on their lifestyle, their bills, their kids, everything. That leaves them with a margin of about $2,700 left over at the end of the month.
Right. And under the AIO formula, because that entire paycheck sweeps into the loan first,
Driving in the daily interest.
driving it down for weeks before they gradually spend that 75%, the payoff forecast completely transforms. Under the AIO, keeping their lifestyle exactly the same, this identical $360,000 loan takes them exactly 8.1 years to pay off.
They wipe out the debt in 8.1 years, down from 30.
Yeah.
That is a difference of almost 22 years, and it saves them over $316,000 in guaranteed interest payments.
Yes. It is a staggering reduction in both time and capital waste.
Wait, hold on though. Let me jump in here with a reality check.
Okay.
Because I was scrutinizing these scenarios, and both of the examples in the text assume the client has a pretty massive chunk of leftover cash every month.
They do.
The first couple
Oh, wait. Someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to interject. We actually have a client that has a $300,000 balance, and they only deposit, they deposit $3,500 every 2 weeks, so $7,000 a month, and they only have $1,100 in leftover money, and they still end up ahead by about 17 years with a payoff period of 13 years, saving about $180,000. So they don't need to have people of the all-in-one product don't need to have $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $8, $10,000 or more. It can be a skinny amount, and they still will save decades.
Thank you so much for interjecting.
That is a brilliant real-world counterpoint.
That actually perfectly addresses the exact question I was about to ask you.
Right, because the data you are sharing a $300,000 balance with only $1,100 left over is actually a much more typical scenario than the two high leverage examples in the sources.
Exactly. We were seeing $2,700 and then a massive $10,200 left over in the documents.
And your client with that slummer $1,100 margin still cuts the payoff by 17 years.
17 years saving $180,000 in interest just by depositing $7,000 a month.
That is the crucial takeaway right there. It proves that the efficiency of the cash flow is the hidden engine, not just the sheer volume of leftover cash.
That really drives home our next point.
It does. If I am a normal person and I spend pretty much every dollar I make by the end of the month, this product doesn't magically pay my house off in 5 years.
That's the key. It's not magic.
If you are operating at a true zero from every single month, the AIO will not perform miracles.
It can't. The math wouldn't work.
Exactly. Having positive cash flow, even the $1,100 margin your client had, absolutely accelerates the ultimate paid-off date.
But based on what you just shared, the hidden engine of this product isn't just the leftover cash.
What is it then? It's the timing of your expenditures.
The timing. Explain that, because your client's case makes that very real.
Think about your own checking account right now. You get paid on the 1st of the month. Your mortgage might be due on the 5th.
Maybe my massive credit card bill auto drafts on the 15th?
Sure, and your utility pull on the 20th. For 14, 15, or 20 days, those thousands of dollars are sitting there totally idle,
Earning zero yield.
right? But in the AIO, that entire paycheck sits against your mortgage principal for those days.
Oh, wow. I see.
Even if you ultimately spend the entire $7,000 by the 30th, for those 2 or 3 weeks, your money was temporarily suffocating your mortgage interest.
Because it's calculated daily.
Exactly. That daily calculation means every single dollar is working for you, every single day it isn't spent.
Over years, that temporary daily suppression of interest compounds massively.
It forces more of your own money toward principal, even if your actual leftover cash at the very end of the month is relatively small, like your client's $1,100.
The AIO takes your idle days and weaponizes them against the bank.
It's about the velocity and efficiency of the cash flow, not just the sheer volume of it.
Okay, that clarifies it beautifully. But let's talk about what happens after year 13 for your client.
The documents highlight something that actually made me put my pen down.
The compounding bonus.
The compounding bonus, yes. Because shaving 17 or 22 years off a mortgage is great.
But what you do with those years is the difference between simply being debt-free and being truly wealthy.
Absolutely. The AIO doesn't just stop at debt destruction, it transitions into a wealth generation phase.
How does that work?
Let's stick with that scenario one couple who paid off their loan in 8.1 years. They no longer have a mortgage payment.
Right, the structural burden of housing debt is just gone.
So the documents then run a projection. What if this couple takes the exact amount they would have been paying on their traditional 30-year mortgage?
Which the math calibrates to about $2,200 a month?
Right, $2,216 every single month. What if they redirect it?
Instead of giving it to the bank, they pay it to themselves.
Yes. They drop it into a standard investment vehicle yielding a 10% annual return.
Like an S&P 500 index fund?
And they do this for the remaining 21.9 years.
Because they had the discipline to kill the interest early.
They have over 2 decades to let the time value of money work in their favor. The result of rerouting that defunct mortgage payment is explosive.
I saw the number.
That monthly contribution generates over $2 million in liquid investment growth.
$2 million in liquid cash simply by rerouting a payment they were already accustomed to making anyway.
Yes, and when you add in the value of the fully paid off home, this client generates over $3.8 million in total net worth over 30 years.
Contrast that with the traditional path. They would finally finish paying off all the interest.
And that's it.
They'd have a house and zero liquid investment from that payment stream because the bank ate it all.
It is the starkest possible visualization of opportunity cost.
And the documents scale this up for heavier hitters too. Scenario 2.
A couple with a $680,000 loan balance at an 8% interest rate.
They deposit $30,000 a month and spend 66% of it.
Yes. Using the AIO, they annihilate a 29-year timeline in exactly 4.5 years. They save nearly $1 million in pure interest.
And that compounding bonus on the freed up capital over the next 25 years creates generational wealth.
It really is mathematically astonishing.
But naturally, this brings up a major psychological barrier.
Of course it does.
Tying your entire checking account into the drywall of your house sounds absolutely terrifying. I mean, who is actually brave enough to do this?
Well, the sources outline a few specific target borrower profiles that help contextualize who takes this leap.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, you have the wealth builder. This is the profile we've been discussing, including your client.
The person who simply despises giving away their money to interest.
Exactly. Then you have the flexible earner. Think of commission-based sales professionals or freelancers.
People with highly fluctuating income cycles.
Right. In a traditional mortgage, a bad month is terrifying because the fixed payment is unyielding.
You owe the $3,000 no matter what.
Yes. With the AIO, they can bank massive excess cash into the mortgage during boom months,
driving down the principal.
but easily draw from the credit line for living or business expenses during lean months. That makes a lot of sense.
And finally, there is the strategic investor.
This is someone who wants resolving instant access to massive equity without having to go through a lengthy, expensive refinance process every time.
To seize an investment opportunity.
Okay, those profiles make sense. But I am still stuck on the safety aspect.
The risk.
Yeah, let's talk about the worst case scenario. If all my liquidity is acting as my mortgage, what happens if I lose my job?
Aren't I risking my family's shelter by intermingling my checking account with my home equity?
It's the most natural fear to have, but the sources counter this by detailing the AIO's built-in flexible conservative safety net.
And mathematically, it actually provides far more security than a traditional mortgage. How so?
Let's look at the job loss scenario detailed in the text.
Yes, there was a specific anecdote about a client who was laid off.
Right. In a traditional mortgage scenario, losing your job is immediately panic-inducing. The bank still demands that rigid payment.
And if your savings run dry and you miss a payment, you're in default.
Foreclosure proceedings begin. But with the AIO, the client in the document didn't panic
Why not?
because he had been aggressively paying down his principal with his entire paycheck for years. He had built up a massive available line of credit within the reservoir.
Because, again, the AIO functions as a revolving HELOC.
Precisely. Now, here is the crucial mechanical difference. The required monthly payment on an AIO is often just the calculated interest for that specific month.
Oh.
Because this client had driven his principal so low, his monthly interest charge was minimal.
The text states his paid down AIO line gave him a month of breathing room without needing to write a traditional check.
He could literally just let the small monthly interest charge sweep automatically from his available equity line.
Exactly. As the document puts it, it bought peace, not stress. It became a rough patch financial anchor.
Wow. So instead of the house being a trap that threatens to evict you when you're down, it actually becomes an automated emergency fund.
Yes. And the documents gave other real world examples too, right?
For seizing opportunities, not just surviving emergencies, they refer to this as the unparalleled opportunity side.
They share a story of a startup founder who used her aggressively paid down AIO as a business war chest.
A war chest. A golden opportunity appeared to fund a major marketing campaign that could scale her company.
Instead of applying for a high interest commercial loan, she simply wrote a check against her AIO.
Just drew from the reservoir. The campaign was a massive success. Her business revenues spiked.
And as the text says, her mortgage made her money.
That's incredible. There was also a brilliant point about being a total financial optimizer regarding outside debt.
The documents talk about a scenario where a family was drowning in 20% APR credit card debt.
Right, the debt consolidation example. They utilized the AIO to completely restructure their liabilities.
They just swept all that high interest, toxic consumer debt into the AIO line.
It's a classic arbitrage strategy. By sweeping 20% credit card debt into the AIO, they dropped the interest rate down to the mortgage level
And subjected that debt to the daily interest calculation? Wow.
and immediately saved them hundreds of dollars in interest leakage every single month, improving their monthly cash flow instantly.
It turns the home into a central financial hub.
And if you're wondering if this is just a theoretical pitch, the documents feature a quote from Eric Waldop, the loan officer who utilizes this product.
What does he say?
He says, quote, "My wife and I don't just market this product. We use the AIO for our own family home because the math is undeniable."
I always appreciate when a financial professional actually eats their own cooking. But let's be real for a second. If this product is so mathematically superior, why doesn't literally everyone have one?
That's the $1 million question.
What is the catch? Let's talk about the guardrails, because you can't just walk into a bank and demand this.
The catch is that this is an incredibly powerful, high leverage financial tool. And precisely because it is so flexible, it has very strict qualifications.
The bank needs to protect itself.
The bank is essentially handing you a massive revolving credit line, complete with a debit card and checkbook, tied directly to the value of your home.
They have to know mathematically that you possess extreme financial discipline.
So what are the actual hurdles to get in?
The documents outline 4 key qualifications. First, your credit score. You must have a minimum FICO score of 700.
Makes sense. It's their primary indicator of historical financial responsibility.
Second is your debt to income ratio, or DTI. The absolute maximum DTI allowed is 43%.
That means your total monthly debt payments cannot exceed 43% of your gross monthly income.
I want to break down why that DTI rule is so strict.
If you have a revolving line of credit that acts as your primary checking account and your debt obligations exceed 43% of your income, there is no margin for error.
None. A single unexpected medical bill or a slight rise in floating interest rates could trigger negative amortization.
Exactly. Negative amortization is the nightmare scenario where your loan balance actually grows every month instead of shrinking.
The 43% DTI cap ensures you have enough organic cash flow to prevent that. That makes perfect sense.
What are the other straw rails?
Third is the reserves requirement. You cannot enter this loan with a zero liquidity in the bank.
If your DTI is under 40%, you must have 10% of the total loan amount in verifiable cash reserves.
And if it's higher,
if your DTI is pushing the other limit between 40% and 43%, that reserve requirement jumps to 15%.
So on a $400,000 loan, you might need $40,000 to $60,000 sitting in reserves just to qualify.
Just to qualify, yes, that's a serious liquidity buffer.
It is a required margin of safety.
And finally, there are structural limits regarding equity. If you are using the AIO to purchase a new home, you must put at least 10% down.
Okay.
If you are refinancing an existing home into an AIO, the maximum loan-to-value ratio they will allow is 80%.
Meaning you have to already have at least 20% equity built up in the home.
You know, when I first read those strict guardrails, it seemed kind of exclusionary.
But looking at the mechanics, it actually protects the consumer as much as the bank.
Without a doubt, if you are someone living entirely paycheck to paycheck with a habit of impulsive overspending, giving you a checkbook attached to your home's equity is a recipe for disaster.
You could literally drain your house to buy depreciating assets.
Exactly. The AIO...
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I wanted to interject about back to refinancing and debt consolidation. We have a client that has about $105,000 of debt between a couple of cars and a lot of credit card debt. And their monthly obligation for that debt is about $1,900. But by putting it into their all-in-one, now becoming debt-free, as long as they have their 80% equity in the or 20% equity in the house, their payment based on their $105,000 of extra all-in-one mortgage.
That is a phenomenal real-world example of the Total Financial Optimizer profile.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It makes the previous abstract point we touched on so much more concrete.
Exactly. We mentioned the family with the 20% credit card debt earlier.
But the scale of your client's $105,000 debt load, that's massive.
And their existing monthly obligation of $1,900 is a huge drain on cash flow.
By rolling that high-interest debt into the AIO, they're essentially refinancing $105,000 at the mortgage rate.
Plus, that debt is now subjected to the daily interest reduction.
So not only are they saving money on the interest rate itself, the AIO mechanics are actively attacking the balance every day.
And since they already have that 20% equity, the 80% LTV limit, they meet the required guardrail to make this move.
It's essentially trading multiple...
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
And they're saving about $1,400 a month.
Oh, that's the killer detail we needed.
$1,400 saved every single month in required debt payments.
That is the practical impact of the arbitrage.
So their previous monthly obligation for all that debt was $1,900.
And now, by folding it into the AIO, that same debt obligation only costs them about $500 a month.
Which means they have nearly $1,500 extra to use against the loan principal.
That acceleration is where the magic of the AIO is truly unlocked for debt consolidation.
It's essentially trading multiple high-interest, static monthly payments for one flexible, low-interest payment.
And that freed up cash flow accelerates the payoff date of the whole thing.
That $1,400 in monthly savings is a massive boost.
It turns the house into a true central financial hub for debt management.
It is the ultimate utility of that unparalleled opportunity side we discussed.
Your client's experience perfectly illustrates why that strict qualification is necessary for such powerful consolidation.
Exactly. The AIO is an amplifier of your financial habits.
If your habits are disciplined and cash flow positive, it dramatically amplifies your wealth creation.
We established that if your habits are destructive and debt-heavy, it will rapidly amplify your liability.
That is precisely why the barriers to entry are kept so high.
So what does this all mean for you listening as we wrap up?
I think the biggest aha moment for me today is just how radically the AIO shifts the entire paradigm of what a house is supposed to be.
It really does. We are so deeply conditioned by the traditional banking system to view our homes as trapped, illiquid assets.
We put down roots, we shove money down a one-way pipe, and we just cross our fingers for slow, decades-long market appreciation.
And meanwhile, the bank is making an absolute killing off our front-loaded interest and our idle checking accounts.
It is a system designed for institutional profit, not consumer velocity.
No, not at all. But this model turns that completely upside down.
By combining the accounts, you are turning your mundane daily cash flow into an active weapon against daily interest.
You are utilizing your idle days, even the small $1,100 leftover margin that our listener brought up.
You're taking the time value of money back from the bank and keeping that wealth for your own family's future.
It is a profound shift in perspective.
And I think it leaves us with a highly provocative question to ponder long after we wrap up here.
What's that?
Well, we've seen mathematically how our daily unspent cash flow has this hidden massive power to destroy mortgage interest.
Just by sitting in the correct type of account for a few weeks a month.
If that is true for our homes, what other areas of our personal finances are currently trapped in old school static structures?
Like, what other accounts, loans, or financial products in our daily lives are deliberately designed to benefit the institutions holding them more than they benefit us?
Oh, that is a fantastic question to leave on.
The one-way pipes are probably everywhere once you actually start looking for them.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the all-in-one loan.
We especially appreciate your incredible interjections today. They really brought the math and the real-world savings, like that $1,400 to life.
We hope it helped you look at your own financial reservoir and the power of your daily cash flow just a little bit differently.
Until next time.